Today's episode is sponsored by Frog Slayer.
I had a conversation. Someone said, the concept of visionary integrators, that's great for small companies, but it doesn't scale. And I'm like, well, I'm going to issue a challenge to you. Find me a company that scaled that did not have a visionary integrator duo.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Rocket Fuel podcast, where visionary and integrator duos from entrepreneurial companies share a behind-the-scenes look at their relationship. These amazing leaders blend their unique skills to create Rocket Fuel. I'm your host, Mark C. Winters, co-author of Rocket Fuel and an expert EOS implementer. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Mark O'Donnell and Kelly Knight, the visionary and integrator duo for EOS Worldwide. Last time I spoke to them, their visionary and integrator duo relationship was still fresh. Since then, EOS Worldwide has grown rapidly, and they've had to manage several challenges: scaling a team, writing a book together, and launching EOS One, a software set to impact 1 million entrepreneurs by 2030. In this episode, Mark and Kelly talk about the mindset shift they underwent to move EOS Worldwide in a new direction, how necessary courage is for navigating hard decisions, and the power of building a culture with intention. We're starting the show with Mark sharing some of the tough calls they've had to make as they scale the business. Here we go. Everybody, today I have the pleasure of speaking with Mark O'Donnell and Kelly Knight, the visionary and integrator of EOS Worldwide. And so last time we were together, your VI duo relationship was still fresh. And since then, EOS Worldwide has evolved in so many ways, from rapidly scaling your team to writing a book together, to launching a new software, EOS One, that's set to impact 1 million entrepreneurs by 2030. So you've been really busy. So I want to thank you for taking the time to be here, and welcome to the show.
Hey, Mark. It's always a pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, always good when we can spend time. So I'm looking forward to our conversation today. Who knows where we'll go and what we'll get into. So let me just kind of kick it off with this. So how are you two working together now as EOS is growing so rapidly and really becoming a household name? So how has that changed over the last year since we spoke?
Yeah, go ahead, Mark. You go first.
I think it's the intensity of what it is that we do has just gone exponential. I mean, the business, the historical business was, we had QCEs, we'd have boot camps, very sort of a plodding business, we'll say, right? It's very calendar driven, very regular pacing, lots of things to do and lots of impact to make. But introducing software into the business has really changed our mindsets, that the frequency, the pace of really everything we do has amped up quite a bit. As Mark Andreessen said, that software is going to eat the world. Well, it's definitely true. It eats the company, it eats everything around it, and it's a never-ending project. So I'd say one of the biggest things that I've noticed bringing in over the last year, bringing in EOS One and scaling that, most of the things that we would do had a finite start and end as a project. Right? When you're finished, you put a tidy bow on it, you deliver it to the world, and you just perpetuate it forever. Well, software is sort of like building a house that just keeps getting addition after addition after addition. And eventually it takes up your whole neighborhood, it takes up your whole county, your state, the adjacent state. It's a project that never ends. So that is a mindset that has been a really interesting shift for us, is that you're working on something that you're going to continue working on to the day you die.
Yeah, that's a big difference from where it all started, right?
For sure.
So Kelly, curious about your perspective on the same question. So over the last year, with all this stuff going on, how has that really changed, how the relationship is working between you and Mark, and how you two work together to keep up with feeding this insatiable beast of a software project?
There's a lot. I mean, EOS One is EOS, so we've got to fundamentally make sure that we're taking care of all of our stakeholders, our target market, which are EOS implementers and clients simultaneously, and serving a lot of other stakeholders. We say that there's a list of 27 that we serve all the time, and obsessing around that.
Is that literal? So a list of 27 stakeholders?
Really is.
Yeah.
It literally is 27 different stakeholders. So that's something that we've got to obsess about all the time, and kind of wrangling that into, really clear shared vision by all requires a lot of time, a lot of energy. And that's something that Mark and I really deepened our relationship with. While we do have a same page meeting every single Monday and once a month for a half day, I would hesitate to say there's not a day that goes by that we're not on the phone really engaging live time. So it's I think that's very different. We were always on the same page in terms of having those regular meeting pulses, but that's really deepened. And remembering that we're tackling things that weren't necessarily in our wheelhouse. We've never done them before. We are not an organization that's fundamentally built as a software company. Mark and I have never written a book before. He's now writing multiple books following people as data and issues. And so I think it's really required that we dig deep and find people around us, the who's, not how's, as Dan Sullivan would say, to help us become great as an organization, to help us see that future, adding the 0 to 1 million companies running on EOS. So we've really needed to be open what is working, what is not working. And one other thing I would say, Mark, is it's really taking time to slow down and talk with people, to have the dangers, opportunities, and strengths about what is truly working and not working, so that we're charting that path forward with better clarity.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So obviously the software hasn't had you busy enough over this past year. So you did go and write a book together along with our good friend, CJ DeBay, the People Book. So tell us about that.
Well, I'll start. What's really cool about the three of us writing this book is that we're all three very passionate about people. My life is hopefully of service to people first. And when we solve the people issues, everything else works itself out. In organizations, when we do not focus on people, it just sort of all falls apart. I don't care how much AI and technology we have in our world, businesses are still filled with humans. And so EOS is a system for channeling human energy. So it was really an honor to write a book that was purely dedicated to going deeper. It's the Mastery Collection book. So it's really getting into, more storytelling and defining things like greater good, a term that we kind of throw around a lot. Greater good is every word of the VTO multiplied by genuine care and concern, as an example. But Mark, in that genuine care and concern, it's really about love. It's the love in organizations that we sometimes don't talk about, but it's that really special ingredient to helping any company. We believe companies running on EOS and other companies to really put their heart and soul into the work that's being done by starting with your own people and then those that you serve.
Great. So important. Mark, what would you add to that?
Well, first I would say it was just a lot of fun writing a book with Kelly and CJ. It was just smooth. Yes, the editing was very difficult, but really what we wanted to do in that collaboration is inspire companies. And the reason why we put dare to build an intentional culture is that we see so many times in session rooms all over the world that leaders are just afraid to make hard choices, make hard decisions, to build that culture with intent, and that it is a continuous refinement process. And it requires a lot of courage. It's very, very difficult. But if you do have that genuine concern for people, that what you're really doing is you're breaking down the barriers of what a company is, because you're really there to serve that human that is put inside of your charge inside of a company. And your job is really to help them live their EOS life. And that might mean that they work for a different company. And that might be a different seat. It might be, so we're really just breaking down what it means to be a person grouped together in a company on a common mission to accomplish something. And so writing that book, what we really wanted to do is take out the difficulty, the fear about making hard people moves, and inspire people to have the courage, have the hard conversation, serve them instead of please them. And you're both going to end up much better off at the end, and you'll be doing a service to the world, really.
Yeah. It's such an important piece of the entrepreneurial puzzle, right? And I think about my clients, and I'm always reminding them that they really are in the people business. And sometimes it's not obvious. You're in a technology company, and maybe there's a lot of leverage, so you don't have very many people, but it's still such a long lever if you're really going to get everything you want out of what you're trying to do. So I love that you spent the time to put this great work out into the world. So I have to dig a little bit more on process, though. So I lived through the process of co-authoring a book with Gino, and so for 18 months, I felt like I was living inside somebody else's brain and they were inside my brain. And so, Mark, you said it was all smooth. The editing was hard. Yeah. Was it really? I know that, you two as a visionary and integrator are wired very differently. And I know CJ, and I know all of you are super strongly opinionated people, and you're passionate and all that kind of stuff. So really, what was it like? What was it like to work together and kind of work that all out? Tell us a little bit more about the process.
Sure. Yeah. So the process, we had a writer who was facilitating all the conversations. And so we spent the first few months doing calls together and just kind of walking through the content, what it is that we wanted to say, how it is that we wanted to say it. And I know people are always looking for, like, I bet you they fight all the time. But it's sort of because when you have just a total respect for each other's unique ability and God-given talents, I think we are all really self-aware in that way. So we know when it's Kelly's time to shine and when it's Mark's time to shine and when it's CJ's time to shine, and how to bring that all together. And we weren't like fumbling over each other, and we were just having a great conversation about how we could impact the world through the book. And the writer would kind of put the words together, and we would review them and go through them. And we certainly discussed and debated some topics and honed and refined. And then at the end, Kelly did all the brain damage to review the book like 17 times and edit and tweak and hone, refine. And of course, the book is never really done. So that was really the process. And I'm sorry to disappoint. There's not much dirt to share.
Well, I will say, though, prior to writing the book, Mark, CJ, and I have sort of been through the war. We have battle scars. Right. So all of that simply just led us to writing a book, because if we could do all those things, going through COVID and changing over from a membership model to a franchise. And some really big, heavy lifts to, bring a community together and to forge that forward just as an organization. So when it came to writing the book, there was just enough trust at that foundation that it made it really, that's what made it easy. It might not have otherwise been quite that effortless if not for all those prior experiences. And from a very practical perspective, we just got out calendars, and I'm like, I'm not messing around with this. We are getting all the dates on the calendar. So be ready and be dedicated and show up and be prepared. And that's just a very practical component to it that just made it pretty easy once we got it set.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of really good lessons there. One is just, as you mentioned, Kelly, the shared experience of having been through the fire together for so long, and all the things that you've done there, and the trust that builds. And again, we see that in our clients all the time, right? As they go through those shared experiences, large or small, it builds up that foundation that they can more effectively do everything else from. The other thing that I notice is different from like the process Gino and I went through is you had that writer, that outside third party, to kind of assemble it based on all of your inputs or whatever. And so maybe that was something that added more friction to our process that you've systematically found a way to kind of smooth out, so that you can spend more time on the high value stuff than the stuff that can kind of create friction, if you will. So
we had no grammar debates.
Right. Yeah, I feel like we had most of those with the editor, or maybe that was just me. So all right, so now let's kind of pivot to eating your own dog food. So with the exponential growth that EOS Worldwide is going under, you got this book on people. As an organization grows, tons of new challenges. We hit the ceiling of complexity. The way things used to work don't work anymore, which frequently leads to tough people decisions. We've got people that we need that aren't here, or people that, because the needs have changed, are no longer in the right seat. They're no longer right seat fit. So talk about that. Talk about how you've put into practice really over the last year those hard people decisions to keep this train moving and again feeding the insatiable monster that you've built.
Mark, you go first, and then I'll fill in.
Yeah. So as we were writing the people book since then, our leadership team has turned over 50% and we've added a seat. And so we were really living our own process, right? We knew that the business was growing and scaling, and we had to make tough calls. Kelly had to have hundreds of calls with people and just getting on the same page with where we are as an organization, try to find that right structure that will help us get through to the next phase of growth, and then going out and finding the right people in the right seats to sit in those seats. And that's been a journey. I mean, since 1 year ago, it's literally over 50% turnover on the leadership team. And then we have, with the growth over the last year, I think we added over 50 people to the broader team. And so that, of course, comes with it a huge level of challenge. You hit the ceiling and sort of chaos and mayhem as you're growing that fast and following the process, running on EOS in order to keep the wheels on the bus and break through the ceiling as you move forward. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, and
that's kind of the journey we've been on over the last year.
I would agree.
Kelly.
And it's just it's always rising above to see greater good. This relentless pursuit of excellence, again, in everybody that we serve. And so it requires being really honest. We had some funk conversations, as they were referred to internally, where things just were not working well. Some of the processes, some data, some communications. And so it really required slowing down and listening. So going around and having great conversations with lots of different members of the team and different parts of the organization, and then piecing together trends of what we're hearing, and then backfilling to take EOS and determine really what is the right structure. And then how does that then inform process? How does that then inform our scorecards? And it really just required going slow to go fast. And we use that pretty often at EOS. And that's really what was entailed. But at the heart of it too, I think in the people book, we talk a little bit about this, but it's really central to this theme the past year, Mark, is this misconception that you're either serving the greater good of the whole organization or an individual, but you can't do both at the same time. And it's just not true. And so when we think about all the right people moves that were required as a result of all of our evolution, we really can either find somebody another seat if they share our core values. If they do not share our core values, that's obviously a different conversation. And sometimes it's helping people really, truly define what they want for themselves and help them find happiness elsewhere. And so that is actually can be a really joy-filled experience. Some of it's really, really hard, don't get me wrong, but part of it is truly just resetting things and being really open to what outcome there is as a result of those conversations. So I would say it's hard and it's scary and it feels like you're climbing a mountain and it's going to take forever. But when you go slow to go fast, things begin to release and break open and you see new possibilities you couldn't see before.
So let's dive into that. You mentioned that, some of it is really hard. And, one of the things that I've learned over the years, which was surprising to me, was that, things that I hate doing, someone else actually loves doing. Things that are super hard for me are actually very easy for someone else. And it's not obvious to us until we kind of, listen to somebody that's experienced that or we experience it ourselves. So when you talk about those hard people conversations, the integrator, that comes with the territory, right? That comes with the role. So talk to us, Kelly, about how that works in your brain. So is it that it's easy for you? Is it that it's hard, but it's the right mind frame? Is it, what is it? What is it that makes that a superpower where you can do it and it doesn't just totally beat you down?
When my mindset is right, It's easy. If I don't get myself in the right mindset, it's the hardest thing I'll do any one given day. So the mindset really for me has to be okay. And I pray on this. Praying for me as part of my business strategy. And so it really is about what is the right thing to do here? What is going to honor the organization, honor our core values, honor everything on our VTO. Our vision traction organizer is the guiding light. That is our vision. That is where we're meant to go. And also simultaneously holding possible what's right for that given person. What is their unique ability and God-given talent? And does it belong here or maybe somewhere else in a different seat? And so when you just take time to think it out, the answer comes to you. I actually keep the VTO to the left side of me. I talk about this often because even though I know all the words that are on it, it's a great filtering mechanism for these really hard decisions that have to be made. I take clarity breaks to get my mind free. If I don't do that, I can often make poor decisions or think things are a certain way when maybe they're not, if I actually take the time to look at the data and the information in front of me, in addition to my own instinct. So I'd say it starts with using those right tools to get to the right answer. And then it's just having the courage to have really hard conversations. And another misnomer is that it's one conversation. Sometimes it's one conversation. Okay. Sometimes it's a series of conversations with a person or a team to get that figured out. So being prepared that while sometimes it's ripping the Band-Aid off and you got to make a tough call and maybe that's exiting someone from the organization, I think more often you may need to think about it as an iterative process to determine if someone can get, say, the GWC in the coming quarter or not. So there's a lot of variables. I often say being an integrator is as much art as it is science. And so leaning into that, every person is different. Every person leads separately. But I think if your mindset is right, you can do anything.
For companies running on EOS, innovation and growth are always a top priority. You're scaling your business, and your technology needs to scale with it. Whether you need to integrate or modernize your existing systems, get a struggling software project over the finish line, or even launch a new software product from the ground up, FrogSlayer's US-based team can help you create digital solutions that fuel growth for years to come. Go from tech frustrated to tech enabled. Schedule your free discovery call today at frogslayer.com. That's FrogSlayer.com, where relationships matter and results count. So I hear you've got a lot of intentionality around this. So you're using prayer, you're using clarity breaks, you've got your greater good reference in your VTO, that help get your mind right, help you have the courage to enter the danger as we speak, right? So I'm curious also, is Mark, in a sense, you're kind of taking this part of the load most of the time, right? As we think about all the things that have to happen in your VI duo, you're carrying a lot of that load. Is Mark a resource that helps to support you as you're able to go do these hard people decisions and hard people conversations? How do you use him, or how does he help you in this relationship to be more effective when you're doing that tough stuff?
Well, 100%. I mean, Mark is my strategic thinking partner, and I like to think I'm his too. So often it's my showing up and saying, here's what I'm seeing, feeling, and sensing. Here's what I think we should do. Here's an approach we can take. What do you think? What have I missed? Because there's the plain devil's advocate. I can't see it all. I can't be everything to everyone. He can see things that I can't see, so he can fill in gaps. He might say, hey, I noticed this. And then I'll say, well, that makes me think about. And then we have this ping pong tennis match that I think we may have talked about on our last episode, actually, which is just this really engaging back and forth thinking exercise that helps us to crystallize and get right what we both together think is the right thing to do. So absolutely, he's a great thinking partner that way.
So Mark, talk to us about how much mind share the people stuff actually consumes for you. Okay, so you're the thought partner, right? You kind of do your ping pong thing. You help Kelly when she needs it. But then can you kind of let that go and just kind of know she's got it? Or do does it sit up there and spin a little bit while it's being taken care of? Give us a little window inside your brain on
that. My initial response was, I just get out the popcorn and watch the show, which is true a little bit. But of course, I am very concerned about getting right people in the right seats. I know with 100% confidence that Kelly's got it, and I don't meddle in that process. Sometimes people will call me or whatever, and I still make every effort to exit that situation because I know she's got it, and kind of working the situation to a conclusion. But does it take mind share? I mean, the answer is yes. It absolutely makes mind share, takes up mind share, because we cannot make progress unless we have right people, right seats. And during those moments where we have people issues that we're dealing with, I'm pretty careful not to add any more vision to the pile, right? Like it takes a lot of energy to have those hard conversations. And so I think it would be doing Kelly a disservice for me to pile on something else at the same time. And so I sort of just hold it off to the side. And when the energy seems to be released from that difficult time, then we start again. So I am thinking about it. I'm aware of it. Does it keep me up at night that it's not going to get solved? No, not a bit. Am I still concerned about it and to take up mind share? Yeah, a little bit.
Interesting. All right. So you two have been together as a VI duo. How long now?
Coming on 4 years.
Yeah.
When's the anniversary?
Technically September. I mean, this goes back to COVID. So the joke is Mark was really in the visionary seat before he technically took the seat in September because of what was going on at EOS at the time, but technically September of 2020.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we're coming up on it, unofficially already, but officially in September. So 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So think back to the beginning. So 2020. And what sort of jumps out to you as the biggest difference in your relationship now versus then? One thing. If you're going to boil it down to one thing, what would it be?
I would just say it's a deeper, more trusting relationship is what it is, just simply based out of experience and time together. We spend a lot of time together. People are shocked at how much time we spend together because I often hear integrators may say, I have a hard time maybe finding my visionary once every week or two. And that's just not the case for us. So I would just say that we spend a lot of time together. We enjoy time together. I think that's beneficial to the company. And that's different than it was 4 years ago, because during COVID, and it was save the company literally at that time. So we're spending a lot of time together, but it was really in battle and war. Today, we certainly have our own set of wars that we're facing, but it's just like melted into a more natural time spent together and deepening of how we care for each other, our team, and those that we serve.
Okay, so deeper trust based relationship. Mark, what would you say?
I would totally agree with that. And really, we started working together, I think, at the fall of 2019. I was head coach at the time and never really had any particular interaction prior to that time. And so we started having conversations in the middle of a war. And sort of the war continued, right? So it is definitely a relationship that has been forged under pressure and lots of very difficult situations, managing people. And so that just continues to evolve. So I don't think I can pick out like one little thing that is different now from then. It's just really continuous evolution. And if you think about like the way gold is refined, right? Gets put under pressure, under fire, the chaff raises to the top, it gets wiped off, and this continuous refining process is really what I would describe it as over time. And we do spend a lot of time on the phone and having conversations, and I'm an out loud thinker, and Kelly probably is too. So that's what creates that ping pong match, and it's just a continuous refinement.
Wow, you're both out loud thinkers. Interesting. So thinking back on the time together, you both knew what a a visionary was and what an integrator was going into it. So has your perspective on the role changed? So how, Kelly, let's start with you. How has your perspective, actually not on your role, but on the role of the visionary changed based on the time you spent with Mark?
Right. So I've worked with 11 visionaries, and what is different about Mark and what's evolved
11.
is his tinkering in sort of the toy box or the workshop, so to speak. And so it's really interesting to see in some of the things when we're challenged with accomplishing things we've never done before, he goes in and he does the research, he does the work, he is out talking to check writers, our implementers, and our clients, and listening and learning and kind of going in and figuring out, well, what really is the best approach. In the research, he goes and he looks at the marketplace. What has happened in the past? Could be something historical, something that's current day, and he just is masterful at connecting dots. And that's something that it was forged and I think accelerated because of building software in a rapidly growing organization and having implementers going from let's see, a year ago, we would have been at like 650 implementers, and now we're at 800. So, that growth is just really important for him to be able to have the time and dedication to be able to do that really good, hard work, and then bring that intel back to the team to share his vision. So I would say that's really accelerated the past year since we've talked, and it's benefited, I know, for me a lot and for our team and hopefully for those that we serve.
So 11 different visionaries, Kelly. So all exactly the same.
No. Completely different.
No,
they're all completely different. All completely.
Yeah. How wide is the span there? So when you think about, we talk about the visionary spectrum, we talk about a lot of different ways that visionaries show up differently. Talk about that. So when you think about the 11, is it kind of, it's all kind of in this tight range, or is it like, no, really, really different?
Really, really different, because as Mark just said, so he's an out loud thinker. While someone else might be like, I'm going to go in a cave and I'm going to come back and I'm going to, have written on a scroll exactly sort of what the vision is. And neither one is right nor wrong. It's just very different. And then you've got everything in between. And there's some that are more creative than others. Sometimes we've got a company where it's more or less replicating what we're doing, but just expanding and scaling it versus reinventing ourselves every 6 to 18 months. So it requires just a different kind of visionary and pivoting to that. So I would say they're all very, very different. And you have to take into account what is it that visionary needs too. One of the things that I hear often is I really just don't, as graders, I just don't really either have the interest or the time necessarily to want to sit with my visionary for a couple hours because I got things to do. I've got to go run the business. But the beauty of working with Mark is I really enjoy it. I look forward to it. When we get together, I'm like, gosh, I wonder what's new and on his mind. And that really gets exciting for me because it's different every week. Some people are not like that. And maybe vision changes a little less often. So it's just a fun journey. The way that I look at it is it's exciting. I don't have any expectation of a way that a visionary should show up. It's kind of really neat that there's a rainbow of different possibilities.
Yeah. So they've got different gifts, different styles of thinking, styles of communicating, different objectives, things they're trying to make happen, and different help that they need. So a great way of articulating that. So Mark, kind of flip the question to you about your perspective on the role of the integrator. So again, you knew what the role was coming in. So you've been with Kelly now for 4 years. Maybe something surprising that you've sort of discovered or started to think differently about, this is how an integrator can really help me, really help a visionary that I didn't think before.
Mm-hmm. And I think we touched on it earlier, is having all those tough conversations, managing the leadership team, the flexibility in managing each person completely different because that's what they need. And in my experience, my brother was really my integrator. He's 15 months younger than me, so basically since birth. And I would have to have all the hard conversations. the managing the energy, in a detailed way, he's much better at doing all that. But Kelly's doing both, and that really creates a huge amount of freedom for me in order to be free to think. And I haven't really changed the way I interact with Kelly versus other integrators, or how I would expect to see an integrator show up in the world, in that I just think that if I have I don't go up to the mountain and come down, because to me, well, that's not enrolling that integrator into the vision. That is simply just telling them what to do. And I personally don't believe that that is a winning strategy. I'd rather enroll that integrator into the conversation because they helped co-create that vision with me. And if we can do that, then we're more likely to be on the same page because we've co-created the thing. And then I can continue doing my part and Kelly can continue doing her part. And so that's I haven't really evolved my thinking per se around that relationship. I've just gained a lot more freedom because really, I joke with Kelly, she's sort of like a purple unicorn that is a type of integrator that doesn't exist in very many places. And the reason I say that is because she's learning at the same speed as I am. She's coming along the journey at the same time, and then being able to execute on it. Oftentimes, and I've seen this in session rooms working with clients, is that the visionary is out there learning and doing and learning and doing and growing, but the integrator is sort of stuck. And we see this in relationships, right? When one partner is going and learning and growing and the other one isn't, now all of a sudden it creates a huge separation between the two, and it creates a lot of friction. So I always want to make sure that that gap doesn't get created while Kelly's doing the nitty-gritty hard work and I'm going and learning new things, that she is left behind, because that would create friction. And so I want to make sure that you kind of are going up the mountain together, as opposed to me running up and then running back down, which I do for other people, just not with Kelly.
Yeah. So I mean, I have this visual, we talk about the puzzle pieces, and obviously the two visionary and integrator puzzle pieces being truly complementary and fitting together well. And part of that fit for the two of you is that it's that tempo. It's that being able to keep up with each other, being able to think together, being able to learn together. That's something that you have in common. And then of course the two fit in with the business. And guess what? The business is not static. Right? Businesses don't just stay like they are right now all the time. They change constantly. And so it's like, that's the train that's moving. And so the duo's got to keep up with it. And if half the duo is keeping up with the train and the other one is kind of running along behind, that's not the three-piece puzzle that we're looking for. So I love that story. I know you two are intentional. Part of your success, I believe, is that you are intentional about continuing to grow and get better and deepen your relationship and work on the things that you need to work on. And I know that one of the tools that you use is the Rocket Fuel Power Index, and filling that out every quarter. And, each one of you kind of takes your cut at where you see things. I'm curious, as you kind of look back over the last year or so, or since you kind of first started using the Power Index, if there's one of the mindsets on there that you've really focused on and made notable progress on, and kind of how you did that, how you chose that one, and what you did to move it forward. Kelly?
I think it's just always been true, but it continues to be true, is that same pageness, because as goes the leadership team, as goes the rest of the organization. So we're just really maniacal about, even when we're good, even if we'd rate it a 10, we're still just constantly obsessing about that all of the time. Because when there could be a gap, we're moving fast and it's like, ooh, Mark and I are not on the same page about this. Identifying that and agree that we get that one right, I think it kind of fixes a lot of the other things. And if that same pageness is off in any way, it creates negative ripple impacts on the rest of the team. So I would say that one for me. What do you think, Mark?
Okay, very super important. Mark, what about you? What's one that you really had to make some progress on, that maybe didn't start off as high as we'd like, but you've made strides?
Well, just to build on what Kelly said with same pageness, because we do talk so often, our feedback loops are super tight, right? And so if maybe a couple hours might go by where we're not on the same page, and then we kind of get back on. But I would say overall, it was not one of the particular topics that we're moving forward. But one of the things, because Kelly mentioned we have these 27 stakeholders, is that it's really about our same pageness, not only with each other, but with the rest. And so that's really what we've been working on, because, you know, sometimes in the thick of it and you're like, oh, you're kind of stuck, you're frustrated, and we'll just fall down that hole together, and it'll take 3 days and you're like, oh, that was terrible. We need to like do extra work to be on the same page with those 27 stakeholders, because it isn't just about us. And we can put that into the 3-part business puzzle if you would like, but that business puzzle is not only 800 plus implementers and 150 employees, it's investors, it's board members, it's owners, it's all those different components to it. So we can get disjointed and in our same pageness, not with one another, but with those other 27. And that can cause, we are kind of going off this way, and we really need to be going off this way.
Yeah.
And following along the shareholders.
Right. And Mark.
Gotcha. Kelly, were you going to add
Well,
stakeholders?
yeah, I was going to say, running that exercise was very enlightening. It was born out of a clarity break, because when things happen and you're like, wait a minute, I thought we had that covered, but we didn't. No, wait a minute. That means there's another group of people that needed to know that. So it's this maniacal tidy bow thing that I learned from Gina Wickman, which is basically tidy bow represents in an organization that when a decision is made or a change of direction, something that influences someone else, you must go to all the stakeholders, the 360-degree view, to make sure that everybody understands what that thing is and how it impacts them. And so that is the deepening of that, is to understand the 27, then to relate it to decision-making, communications, and all of those cascading components. And you'll be surprised if you take a little look at that. Really, it's quite eye-opening just about where you've got the holes. And so when Gino had shared with me Tidy Bow, it was born out of a navigation meeting that he and I were having as he was seeking to make me a world-class integrator as part of his succession plan. That it was eye-opening because I wasn't doing it very well at the time. But in Gino's masterful way, he was able to tell this story of the Tidy Bow and what it should look like. And that's then, of course, since then always inspired me. But there's always the ability to get better at that.
Yep, love the tidy bow. All right, Mark, to you, Mr. Visionary here. Look 10 years in the future. Yep. Tell us what EOS Worldwide looks like, and tell us what the role of the VI Duo is in getting us there and making that future happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would start with, in my view, EOS becomes the de facto standard on how to run and grow an entrepreneurial business in the world. Just like Peter Drucker made management and the concept of management acceptable, a thing, a discipline, EOS becomes that, where it is just what you do in order to run a great business. And it's a complete system. We have implementers, we have great content in the world that is making it so accessible and easy for people to implement these tools, to make an impact, to make a dent in the universe. Implementers are coaching and not only building great lives for themselves, but they're making a huge difference in the lives of the businesses that they're working with. And then we have our technology platform, our web platform, where it's helping people make better decisions. It's keeping them more organized, and they're just rocking and rolling in their companies. And we're really moving economies as a result of that. And then if we dig a little bit deeper into that with the Visionary, Integrator, and VI duos, I had a conversation. Someone said, the concept of visionary integrators, that's great for small companies, but it doesn't scale. And I'm like, well, I'm going to issue a challenge to you. Find me a company that scaled that did not have a visionary integrator duo. And of course, they couldn't find one because they don't exist. And so to me, the concept of a visionary and integrator has existed throughout all time. You can go into the ancient texts. You can look at, you can look at the Bible and you see visionary integrator relationships happening over and over and over again. You can look through all the case studies, they're there. So what I believe that our role is with EOS is to shine a light on the fact that this relationship has always existed. It's just that you haven't recognized it and given credit where it's due. And so once we can create that awareness, shine the light and say, you have a visionary integrator relationship, whether you know it or not, who's the who, and now then how do we make that an effective relationship? How do we make that something that can grow the organization? Because really, in my view, and I've said this before, and it can be quite shocking to people, is that it's more important that you have a great VI duo than it is that you have an operating system and you're strong in the 6 key components. Because if you don't have that VI duo identified, it's not a great fit. Nothing else is going to work. It's going to have such negative ripple effects throughout the business. The chances of you making a difference implementing EOS, it'll help a little bit, but it's not really going to take you where you want to go. You're going to have to do a lot more work than you should. You're not going to be able to live in your unique ability, God-given talent, and it's just not going to work. So to me, that is what our role is, that we've shined a light on this de facto standard that it's taught in business schools around the world. And this is the way to run a company, to provide the most impact, least amount of time and effort. And those businesses employ millions of people and literally move economies. So that's when I look in 10 years from now, that is where the journey we've begun, because there's no end to that one.
Yeah. Kelly, would you add to that?
Well, I agree with everything Mark said. I had a little cough there. Sorry about that, folks. I would just say it's democratizing EOS to the world. The greater that we can have that reach of EOS to all corners of the world, I know we're going to continue to make a huge impact through our implementers, through EOS One, through the content. And so the more that we just make it accessible in ways that were really only originally by getting the book or by having an implementer in your region, is just to expand that in amazing ways. And, I think so much of entrepreneurs and how they shape our world. And without entrepreneurs, it would be a very different world, a world that arguably wouldn't exist as it does today. So that impact is it's pretty awe-dropping to think about the magnitude of impact that we can make.
Yeah, so I love that. I think about the EOS life is kind of this super powerful thing that is an impact that that we're having as an organization. The strong VI duos are a key driver of that. The strong operating system is a key driver of that. The software platform, the implementers, everybody kind of helps make that happen. And so the scale that you're talking about, Mark, when you lay it out there, 10 years from now, and we know how important the VI duo is in making a vision real for a business. How much pressure are you feeling? Are you feeling that? Right. So if we want to make this big dent in the universe as this company, and it's, so much of it is dependent on the two of you being dialed in a great duo leading this organization to go and have that impact. Do you feel that?
People tell me all the time, like, man, you're so relaxed. You must be dead inside or something.
Dead inside.
and I'm not. So I feel the responsibility of that. I don't feel the pressure of that in a negative way. Now, do I get worked up if things aren't going the way I would like them to go? Do I oh, yeah, of course.
What?
But I don't feel this undue.
What are you talking? I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. Never. No, I obviously get passionate about certain topics that I don't think are going the way they should be. But in terms of executing on that vision, to me, it is a little bit of a foregone conclusion. It's just a matter of time. And I'm very patient.
Kelly, you feel it?
It's the 3 Ps, as I call them.
Okay.
And the 3 do protect, preserve, and perpetuate EOS forever. And so that's more of a responsibility component than it is pressure or whatnot. But I feel that's my 2 a.m. obsession, is being a protector of this really beautiful thing that's been created so long ago, originating with Gino and Don, and through all the evolution, through all the change, through all the succession planning, through the company being sold to where it is today. I just want it to be great. So that does come sometimes with those early morning wake ups of what are the things that I need to obsess about today so that we're doing the right thing.
Yeah. So I love that sort of the tension on the rubber band, right? Is you've got, Mark kind of pushing the vision and putting pressure on the system, right? And then you're figuring out how we can do that without, while still protecting and preserving and perpetuating, right? Your 3 Ps. And so that's a real nice, nice creative tension that it puts on the two of you and the organization as a result. So great discussion. Really appreciate the two of you taking some time to give us a little window into your world of what's going on with your VI Duo inside of EOS Worldwide. We got visionaries and integrators listening to this, and all the stakeholders of those folks that are tuning in probably as well. And so I'm sure that you've helped them. So, whole idea here is how can we help some people learn something maybe a little bit sooner so they don't have to learn it the hard way, like, all the lessons that many of us end up learning the hard way. Maybe they get there with a little bit less pain, get there a little bit faster, wherever it is they're trying to go. So I know you've helped some folks today. So thank both of you for being here. And thanks to our listeners for listening. And if you like what you're hearing, tell somebody, give us a review. That's how more people find out about our little podcast here. And we just want to help more people make an impact in the world. So that's what we're here for. And so we look forward to seeing you next time. And until next time, go Rocket. All right. So fantastic conversation there with Mark and Kelly. I always love talking to those two. And I think they're such a great example of a powerful VI duo. And so let's go to the toolbox and kind of pull out a couple of nuggets. So, one thing was how Kelly talked about being intentional to get her mindset right. And one of the tools that she used there was the clarity break, right? Spending time in that clarity break to sort of remind herself of the greater good picture, where she's trying to go. Prayer is a tool that she uses, getting clear so she's confident and completely focused on what it is that she's trying to do. So I thought that was a really good application of that tool. You also heard her talk multiple times about same-pageness and just their maniacal, I think was the word that she used about that discipline. And it's different than just talking a lot. It's having that dedicated time to go deep and talk about the things that you won't just talk about in a hit and run conversation when you pass each other in the hall or when you're on a quick Zoom catch up. It's having the space to really get into whatever those things are that you need to get into, that are many times it's a deeper thing. It's a foundational thing. It's something that's either getting in the way or something that hasn't been unlocked yet. So I thought that was another really powerful tool reference there. And then finally, the last one is this idea of the 3-piece puzzle. So again, the visionary piece, the integrator piece fitting together, in a very complementary fashion, and then both plugging into the piece, the third piece, which is the business itself. And the picture of how those things are dynamic. We're always changing. The visionary is always changing. The integrator is always changing. So are you learning and growing at the same pace, or is the visionary outgrowing the integrator? Or sometimes it could happen. I've actually seen it where the visionary actually gets kind of stagnant and the integrator is outgrowing the visionary. And then of course the business is moving all the time. So it's moving along. It's changing. Your market is changing. The needs of the business are changing. So is that 3-piece puzzle moving along and growing at the same pace? So great applications of tools. Always love going back to the toolbox and helping you folks anchor it back down into the stuff that can help you as you have issues and situations to kind of try to get yourself closer to where it is you want to be, getting what you want to get out of your business and making your VI duo as powerful as it possibly can be. So to kind of wrap this one up, be sure to go to rocketfueluniversity.com. Take the assessment there, the crystallizer assessment. If you haven't taken it yet, learn more about the various tools that we offer and join our community of visionaries and integrators. I'd love to see you in there and perhaps see you at an event and help you learn something. So appreciate you taking the time to listen today. And until next time, go Rocket. The best support for integrators is other integrators. That's why we created the Integrator Mastery Forum, the #1 community and training program for those in the #2 seat. Join this peer group to share experiences, attend collaborative calls, access mastery level resources, and showcase your credentials on the IMF directory. Visit rocketfueluniversity.com to learn more.